Welcome back to the Life with the Browns. The courtroom fell into an uneasy silence the moment Meri Brown slowly rose from her seat. The air felt heavy, as if everyone present understood that what was about to unfold was no longer just another dispute inside a complicated plural family. Meri's voice was steady, calm, and controlled. But across the room, Kody Brown's hands trembled slightly on the table in front of him. For years, Kody had been the man in control, the patriarch, the decision-maker, the one who spoke for the family on television and behind closed doors. But today, things were different. Today, the control had shifted. This was no longer about a marriage falling apart. This was about lies, about money, about control, and about a betrayal that ran deeper than anyone inside the courtroom had expected. Stay with us, because what happened inside that courtroom would shock even the most devoted Sister Wives fans. What began as a quiet legal filing would explode into allegations of secret agreements, hidden accounts, and a financial scandal no one ever saw coming. This is the complete courtroom breakdown of Meri versus Kody and the secret trust fund scandal that threatened to destroy everything. The story began on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday morning. Inside the courthouse in Coconino County, Arizona, people moved through security lines as they did every day. Lawyers hurried through hallways, clerks organized paperwork, and judges prepared for their dockets. But when Meri Brown walked through the courthouse doors, something felt different. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't accompanied by cameras. And she wasn't there to support Kody. Instead, Meri walked in carrying a thick stack of documents clutched tightly in her hands. No reporters surrounded her. No producers followed behind. Just determination. For years, Meri had stayed quiet, through family arguments, through emotional distance, through the slow collapse of a plural marriage that had once been presented to the world as a united front. But on this day, the silence ended. Meri stepped up to the clerk's desk. The clerk glanced up briefly. "Filing for a civil suit?" the clerk asked. Meri nodded. Her voice was calm, but firm. "Yes." "Against who?" Meri answered without hesitation. "Kody Brown and Robyn Brown." The words seemed almost unreal. For more than a decade, viewers had watched Meri as Kody's first wife, the woman who helped build the Brown family long before the television cameras ever arrived, the woman who had remained loyal through endless emotional storms. But now the tables had turned. Meri wasn't returning to the show. She was suing the family. According to the civil complaint filed that morning, Meri accused Kody and Robyn of something far more serious than family disagreements. The documents outlined allegations of fraudulent concealment, financial misrepresentation, and manipulation of the Brown family trust. This trust had originally been created years earlier as a shared financial safety net for the entire family. All four wives had contributed to it: Meri, Janelle, Christine, and even Robyn. The purpose was simple: to protect the future of the family and provide financial stability for the wives and their children. But Meri's lawsuit claimed that something had gone terribly wrong behind the scenes. Over the years, Meri, Janelle, and Christine had each deposited income into the trust: business profits, television money, royalties from books and merchandise connected to the family's brand. Yet according to the lawsuit, only two people ever truly controlled the account: Kody and Robyn. And what made things worse was what Meri discovered after Christine left the family. According to her legal team, just weeks after Christine publicly announced her departure, the trust documents had been quietly rewritten. Meri's name had disappeared. Her financial rights had been erased without her knowledge, without her signature, without her consent. It wasn't just about the money. It was about betrayal hidden behind legal paperwork. As Meri later explained to her lawyer, the pain went far deeper than dollars and bank statements. "Kody always said he was protecting the family," she said quietly. But he was really protecting Robyn and himself. The courtroom would soon learn that Meri's legal team had something powerful to prove their claims. During the first hearing, Meri's attorney, Carol Jensen, presented the judge with a scanned copy of a trust amendment. The date on the document shocked everyone. It had been signed just 3 weeks after Christine left the family. 2 signatures appeared at the bottom: Kody Brown, Robyn Brown. But there was something missing.
no witnesses, no notary.
and no signatures from the other wives. Even worse, the amendment included new language that redirected future trust assets only to remaining legal partners and their dependent children, which now meant only two people qualified:
Kody.
and Robyn. For the first time that day, the courtroom realized something serious might have happened. But Kody wasn't about to admit anything. When he arrived at the courthouse later that morning, he walked in with his usual confidence. Long hair tied back, sunglasses on, moving like a reality television star arriving on set. Reporters quickly gathered around him. "This lawsuit is ridiculous," Kody said dismissively. "Meri's just bitter because she's not part of the family anymore. This isn't a legal problem. It's a personal vendetta." But inside the courtroom, things didn't go as smoothly for him. When Kody's attorney attempted to defend the trust amendment, the judge carefully reviewed the original documents. Then the judge looked up slowly. "This clause allowing modifications," the judge said, "is extremely ambiguous." The courtroom waited. And if Mrs. Brown's name was removed without her knowledge or approval, the judge continued, that could represent a serious legal violation. Meri didn't smile. She didn't react at all. She simply sat quietly, staring at Kody. For the first time in years, the man who once controlled the entire family narrative was no longer the one in charge. Now the court was asking the questions, and Meri had only just begun revealing the truth. As the courtroom session continued, the tension inside the room grew heavier with every passing minute. What had started as a quiet legal dispute was now slowly turning into something far more serious. Meri's legal team was just getting started, and the evidence they were about to reveal would shake the entire courtroom. Meri's attorney, Carol Jensen, stood calmly in front of the judge. Her voice was controlled, but the weight of what she was about to present could be felt throughout the room. "Your Honor," she began, "we would like to introduce a series of email communications between Mr. Kody Brown and Mrs. Meri Brown dating back several years." A screen behind the courtroom lit up as the emails appeared one by one. These were not vague conversations. They were detailed, and they told a story. One email from years earlier showed Kody directly asking Meri to deposit profits from her bed and breakfast business into the Brown family trust. The message read, "Meri, the trust is our family's safety net. Everything we build goes there so all the wives and children are protected. It's everyone's future." Meri had trusted those words. Over the years, she had deposited thousands of dollars into that trust account. Money from her business, money from family ventures, and even a portion of her television earnings connected to the show. But when Meri asked for access to the financial statements in 2022, the response she received stunned her. Another email appeared on the courtroom screen. It was from Kody.
Short.
Dismissive. "That's all being handled by Robyn now. She's keeping things streamlined." The word echoed through the courtroom like a cold wind. Streamlined. To Kody, it sounded like a business decision. To Meri, it sounded like something else entirely. Like she had been quietly removed. Cut out. Erased. Meri didn't interrupt as the emails were read aloud. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply sat there with a calm expression, staring directly at Kody across the courtroom. Not with anger, but with a kind of exhausted clarity. It was the look of someone who had finally connected all the pieces. But the emails were only the beginning. Meri's attorney stepped forward again and addressed the judge. "Your Honor, the trust funds are only one part of this case." She paused for a moment. "There is also the matter of the income generated by the family brand." The courtroom murmured quietly. Everyone in that room knew exactly what she meant. For more than a decade, the Brown family had built a powerful television brand. Their reality show had drawn millions of viewers, generating income not only from television contracts but also from books, merchandise, interviews, and public appearances. And that brand had been built on the image of 4 wives and 1 husband living as one family.
Meri, Janelle,
Christine, Robyn. But according to Meri's legal team, something changed behind the scenes beginning in 2021. New financial records showed that the royalties from the television show and other business ventures were no longer being distributed through the original trust. Instead, the payments had begun flowing into a new company account. an account owned exclusively by Kody and Robyn. The courtroom fell silent. This was no longer just a disagreement about family finances. This was beginning to look like something much larger. Meri's lawyer presented a list of deposits that had been made over the years by Meri and Janelle's businesses. The total amount shocked the room. More than $310,000 had been placed into the trust by the wives. Yet when investigators reviewed the withdrawal history, something strange appeared. None of that money had ever been distributed back to them. Not once. The judge leaned forward slowly. "And you're saying your client didn't know she had been removed from the trust?" the judge asked. Meri's attorney nodded. She only discovered it when she requested a financial statement and was told she no longer had authorization to access the account. The judge turned his attention toward Kody. "And you, Mr. Brown?" the judge asked. Kody shifted in his seat. His voice sounded less confident than before. "I didn't think she needed to know," he replied. The courtroom held its breath. She wasn't part of the family anymore. The words landed like a bomb. Meri's eyes locked onto Kody immediately. That single sentence changed everything. Because suddenly the case wasn't just about paperwork. It revealed something much deeper about how Kody viewed the women who had once built the family beside him. To him, Meri was no longer family, which meant, in his mind, she no longer deserved access to the family finances. The judge sat quietly for several seconds, letting the statement settle over the room. Meanwhile, Robyn sat silently behind Kody. She hadn't spoken once since the hearing began, but her silence said more than words ever could. Her eyes moved back and forth between the judge and the lawyers, her face tight with tension. She knew the spotlight might soon turn toward her. Outside the courthouse, reporters had already begun gathering. Rumors were spreading quickly, and word of the lawsuit had reached social media. Fans of the show were already debating what it meant. Was Meri finally exposing something that had been hidden for years? Or was this simply the final chapter of a broken family? Inside the courtroom, the judge eventually spoke again. "I am ordering full access to the Brown family trust documents," he announced. Every transaction, every amendment, every communication related to the account. The judge then looked directly at Kody and Robyn. Discovery begins immediately. That meant investigators would now examine everything. Bank transfers, emails, corporate filings, business agreements. Nothing would remain hidden. The case was no longer a quiet family dispute. It had become a full-scale legal investigation. Meri gathered her papers as the hearing ended. Reporters rushed toward her the moment she stepped outside the courthouse. "Meri, do you feel vindicated?" one reporter shouted. But she didn't answer. She simply got into a black SUV and drove away. Inside the courthouse, however, something else had already begun. The next hearing had been scheduled, and Meri had quietly told her attorney something that would send chills down everyone's spine. "This is just the beginning," she said, "because I have more than trust documents." And the next person who would soon take the witness stand would be Robyn. The next court session arrived faster than anyone expected, and the atmosphere inside the courtroom had completely changed. Word of Meri's lawsuit had spread across social media, entertainment blogs, and fan forums. What once seemed like a private family dispute was now national news. But inside the courtroom, the mood was colder, heavier. Because today, for the first time, Robyn Brown was about to speak. She hadn't originally been listed as a defendant in the lawsuit, but Meri's legal team had subpoenaed her as a major witness. And when the courtroom doors opened and Robyn walked inside, every head in the room turned. She looked different than she usually did on television. Her hair was neatly pulled back. Her hands trembled slightly as she took her seat. And her eyes constantly searched the room for Kody. But Kody didn't look back. When the clerk called her name, Robyn slowly stood and walked toward the witness stand. The tension in the courtroom grew almost unbearable as she placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Meri's attorney, Carol Jensen, approached carefully. "Mrs. Brown," she began calmly, "is it true that you have had full access to the Brown family trust account since 2021? Robyn swallowed hard. "Yes," she answered quietly. "And were you aware that Meri Brown and the other wives no longer had access to the account after that time?" Robyn hesitated. Her voice cracked slightly as she spoke. I was told they weren't contributing anymore, that the account was being streamlined. That word again. Streamlined. But this time it sounded different. Not confident. Not calculated. Almost guilty. Meri's attorney stepped closer. And who informed you that the account needed to be streamlined? Robyn glanced toward Kody. Then she answered. Kody did. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, crossing his arms tightly. The courtroom remained silent as Meri's attorney pulled out another document and handed it to the judge. Your Honor, she said, we would like to display a specific clause from the trust amendment. The courtroom projector flickered on. A page of legal text appeared on the screen. It was an amendment dated January 18, 2022. Most of the wording looked like standard legal language, but buried deep within the document was one particular clause that immediately caught everyone's attention. It read, upon family restructuring, surviving legal partners and their natural-born children shall maintain sole control of the trust and all related financial assets. Meri's attorney pointed to the bottom of the page. Your Honor, there are only 2 names listed under surviving legal partners. The courtroom held its breath. Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. Robyn stared at the screen, confused. Her eyes widened. I never saw that version, she said quietly. That wasn't what I signed. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Brown, he said carefully, are you suggesting that your signature appears on a document that you may not have fully reviewed? Robyn looked shaken. I don't know, she admitted. Kody just told me it was a family update. I trusted him. Meri watched silently from across the room. For the first time, something unexpected became clear. Robyn might not have been the mastermind. She might have simply been following Kody's lead. But the courtroom drama wasn't finished yet, because suddenly the courtroom doors opened again, and someone unexpected walked inside. Christine Brown. Gasps spread through the room as Christine made her way toward the witness stand. She hadn't been scheduled to testify that day, but after seeing the news coverage surrounding the case, she had voluntarily contacted Meri's attorney.
She wanted to speak.
The judge allowed it. Christine sat down and faced the courtroom. Her voice was calm, but firm. When I left the family, Christine began, Kody told me that walking away meant giving up all financial ties to the family. Meri's attorney stepped closer. Did you sign any document confirming that decision? Christine shook her head.
No, I didn't sign anything. I didn't even know the trust had been changed.
And did Kody ever mention that Meri would also lose her rights to the trust? Christine nodded slowly. Yes. The courtroom became completely silent. He told me that from now on, things would be simpler, Christine continued. He said it would just be him and Robyn managing everything. The words echoed through the courtroom. Simpler. The same pattern. The same explanation. Meri's attorney then presented a timeline on the courtroom screen. The dates were shocking. 3 weeks after Christine announced her departure, Meri lost access to the trust account. 2 weeks later, a new company was created, an LLC called Family Harmony Holdings. And the owners listed on the paperwork were exactly who everyone feared. Kody Brown. Robyn Brown. The judge frowned deeply. Were the other wives informed about this new company? He asked. Meri answered quietly.
No.
We only discovered it after someone leaked the information online. Suddenly, the courtroom realized the full scope of what might have happened. This wasn't just about a trust fund. This was about a hidden company created behind the backs of 3 women who had helped build the entire family brand. Kody's attorney quickly stood up to defend him. These were post-separation business decisions, he argued. Strategic financial restructuring after family members chose to leave. But the judge wasn't impressed. If these women were still legally connected to the trust at the time, the judge replied sharply, then those business decisions carry serious legal consequences. And then another witness stepped forward, Meri Brown. She approached the stand holding a small black folder. Inside were dozens of bank receipts, payments she had made from her real estate business to what she believed was still the shared family trust. I kept contributing even after Christine left, Meri explained, because Kody told me the account was still communal. The courtroom murmured again. But when I asked to use some of the money for my son's medical expenses, Janelle continued quietly. Robyn told me the account wasn't available anymore. The judge looked up sharply. What reason was given? They said the account had been restructured. Janelle paused. But nobody told me I'd already been removed. At that moment, the judge ordered something that made Kody's legal team visibly nervous. A full forensic audit, the judge announced. Every transaction, every account, every company connected to this trust. Forensic accountants would now track the flow of money over several years. Every dollar, every transfer, every signature. The courtroom buzzed with quiet shock, because the case had now crossed into dangerous territory. This wasn't just civil litigation anymore. It was starting to look like financial fraud. Kody leaned toward his attorney, whispering frantically. Robyn looked pale, and in the audience, reporters, former fans, and even a few former production staff from the show sat in stunned silence. The drama people had watched on television for years suddenly felt very real and very serious. Within hours, social media exploded. The hashtag #SisterWivesCourt began trending. People everywhere began asking the same question. What else had been hidden all these years? Inside the courtroom, the judge made one final announcement before ending the session. This court finds sufficient evidence to move this case to a full civil trial. He paused. All trust documents, LLC agreements, and royalty records must be submitted within 14 days. Meri allowed herself a small smile. Not a smug one. Not a triumphant one. Just the quiet smile of someone who had waited a long time for the truth to finally come out. But the real shock was still ahead. Because during the next hearing, Meri's legal team would reveal emails, threats, and secret messages that would push the case even closer to criminal charges. And Kody's empire would begin to crumble piece by piece. Only 4 days had passed since the explosive testimony from Robyn, Christine, and Janelle, but the atmosphere inside the courthouse had changed completely. Outside, media trucks lined the streets. Reporters broadcast live updates every hour. Fans of the show debated the case across social media. Inside the courtroom, however, things felt colder, more serious. Kody Brown sat stiffly beside his attorney, no longer carrying the confident attitude he had displayed during the first hearing. The cameras were gone, the producers were gone, and there was no editing to soften the moment. Today, the court would hear new evidence. And Meri's legal team had arrived with something powerful. Meri's attorney, Carol Jensen, stood slowly and raised a thin black tablet. Your Honor, she said calmly, today we are submitting a series of email communications sent from Mr. Kody Brown to Mrs. Meri Brown between March and October of 2022. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the projector behind her lit up. The first subject line appeared on the screen. Let it go, Meri. Walk away peacefully. A ripple of murmurs moved through the courtroom. The body of the email appeared next. You walking away is the cleanest outcome for everyone. Let's not make this messy. You'll still have your business. Don't make this legal. It doesn't need to go that route. Signed simply. Kody. The courtroom grew quiet. Meri remained completely still as the email was read aloud. But that message was only the beginning. Meri's lawyer clicked to the next email. This one was dated May 12th, 2022. And its tone was darker. I've tried to be fair. But if you insist on digging into the money, remember that everything you've earned came from the show we created. Be smart. Robyn and I have legal safeguards. You don't. A few people in the gallery gasped. The judge leaned forward slightly, studying the screen. Meri's attorney turned toward the bench. Your Honor, this is not simply a disagreement over finances, she explained. This is a clear pattern of intimidation designed to pressure my client into staying silent. Kody's lawyer immediately jumped to his feet. Objection, he said. These are private communications between two individuals during a stressful family situation. But the judge raised a hand. Overruled, he said calmly. Continue. The final email then appeared on the screen. This one carried a message that sent chills through the courtroom. If you sue me, everything comes out. Everything. Are you ready for that kind of storm? The words hung in the air. Meri's lawyer spoke again. This message was sent 2 days after my client formally requested financial statements regarding the trust.
She paused.
Your Honor, the implication is clear. Mr. Brown attempted to intimidate Mrs. Brown into abandoning her legal rights. Kody leaned back in his chair, his jaw clenched. But Meri's team wasn't finished. Next, the court clerk was handed a small flash drive. Contained on this drive, the attorney explained, are phone records connected to a prepaid burner phone. The screen changed again. A series of text messages appeared.
Short. Threatening.
Leave it alone. You'll ruin your life dragging this out. You've been warned. Then came one message that shook the room even further. You can't trust Christine.
She's playing you.
The courtroom erupted with whispers. Meri's legal team had never publicly discussed Christine's involvement in the case, which meant whoever sent the message had inside knowledge. The judge raised his hand for silence. Then Meri's attorney revealed the final detail. Our investigators traced the device's location data, she explained. On 2 separate occasions, the phone connected to an internet address registered at Mr. Kody Brown and Mrs. Robyn Brown's shared residence. Robyn's hand flew to her mouth. She turned toward Kody, whispering something urgently.
Kody didn't respond.
The judge called for a brief recess. But before leaving the bench, he delivered a warning that sent a wave of tension through the courtroom. This case is no longer limited to financial misconduct, he said firmly. These messages suggest potential witness intimidation. If confirmed, the court will consider additional criminal charges. 10 minutes later, the court reconvened, and Meri's legal team introduced their next witness, a former production coordinator who had worked behind the scenes on the show for 4 years. She looked nervous as she approached the witness stand, twisting her hands slightly before taking the oath. Meri's attorney spoke gently. During your time working on the show, did you observe any discussions regarding family finances? The woman nodded. Yes, she said quietly. Kody controlled everything. The courtroom leaned forward. He decided what storylines were shown on camera, she continued. If anyone brought up money issues or arguments about finances, he would shut it down immediately. What did he say? The attorney asked. The witness took a breath. He would say, we're not airing dirty laundry. But then she added something that made the courtroom even more uncomfortable. Behind the cameras, though, Kody talked differently. He would tell producers that Robyn was the future of the family. And the other wives, the attorney asked. He called them temporary. Kody visibly winced. But the most damaging testimony of the day was still ahead. Because next, the court called the forensic auditor who had been investigating the trust accounts. His name was David Herrera, a calm, precise man who spoke with clinical clarity. Herrera stood before the courtroom and began explaining his findings. Between April 2021 and August 2023, he said, the Brown Family Trust received a total of $614,289 from television payments, book royalties, and merchandise revenue. He clicked to the next slide. Of that amount, only $2,400 was withdrawn by anyone other than Kody Brown or Robyn Brown. The judge raised his eyebrows. Herrera continued. In January 2022, a second account was established under the name Family Harmony Holdings LLC. Funds from the trust were transferred into that account on a monthly basis. And who controlled that account? Meri's attorney asked. Only 2 individuals, Herrera replied. Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. The courtroom fell silent again. Because the numbers didn't lie. What had started as a family disagreement had now transformed into something much darker. A documented pattern of hidden accounts, secret transfers, and financial control. The judge leaned forward and addressed the courtroom. With the evidence presented today, he said slowly, this court has reason to investigate potential civil fraud and financial misconduct. He paused before continuing. I am ordering a complete financial audit of all trust accounts, LLC records, and royalty payments. Then he looked directly at Kody. If any attempt is made to conceal assets or interfere with witnesses, this matter will be referred to criminal court. The gavel struck the bench. The courtroom erupted into whispers. Outside the courthouse, reporters were already rushing to break the story. And inside the room, One thing had become clear. Kody Brown's carefully built empire was beginning to collapse, and the next hearing would decide his fate. By the time the final court hearing arrived, the courthouse had become the center of a media storm. Satellite trucks crowded the streets outside. Reporters lined the sidewalks hoping to catch even a single comment from the people involved. Fans of the show gathered across the street, holding signs that read "Justice for Meri." But inside courtroom 3A, there were no cameras. Only silence. The room was filled with lawyers, journalists, former crew members from the show, and a handful of curious spectators who had managed to secure seats. Everyone knew something important was about to happen, because today the court would hear from the final witness, the man who helped create the Brown family trust years earlier. His name was Marcus Renner. When the courtroom doors opened and Marcus walked inside, the room immediately grew quiet. He was an older man now, his hair turning gray, carrying a small black briefcase filled with documents. He wasn't there to defend anyone. He wasn't there to attack anyone. He was there to tell the truth. Meri's attorney called him to the stand. "Mr. Renner," she began, "can you confirm your role in the creation of the Brown family trust?" Marcus nodded calmly. "Yes," he replied. "I served as Mr. Brown's financial advisor from 2010 until 2017. During that time, I helped create the original trust agreement." "And who are the beneficiaries of that trust?" "All 4 wives," Marcus answered. "Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn." The courtroom leaned forward. "The structure was very simple," Marcus continued. "Every wife contributed financially, and every wife had equal access to the funds. The trust was designed to protect the family as a unit." Meri's attorney paused before asking the next question. "Did you make any changes to the trust after 2017? Marcus shook his head.
No.
"Why not?" The answer sent a ripple through the courtroom. "Because I resigned," Marcus said. "And why did you resign?" Marcus looked directly at Kody before answering. "Because I discovered that Mr. Brown had begun moving money between accounts without informing the other wives." Gasps filled the courtroom. "When I confronted him," Marcus continued, "he told me something I will never forget." The room held its breath. Marcus spoke the words slowly. He said, "This isn't about fairness. It's about control." Those words landed like a thunderclap. Marcus then opened his briefcase and removed a printed letter. "This," he explained, "is a termination letter I sent Mr. Brown in 2018. The letter warned Kody that continuing to move trust funds without disclosure could be considered fraudulent conduct under the trust agreement." The judge leaned forward. "Did Mr. Brown respond to that warning?" he asked. Marcus nodded. "Yes." "And what did he say?" Marcus answered quietly. "He told me I was overreacting and that he had a vision for the family that the others didn't need to understand." The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Meri's attorney spoke again. "Your Honor, we are submitting a sworn affidavit from Mr. Renner containing internal emails, draft revisions of trust documents, and voice messages that demonstrate Mr. Brown was fully aware of the restructuring taking place over several years." Kody's legal team sat silently. They had stopped trying to argue, because at that point everyone in the room knew what was coming. After a brief recess, the judge returned to the bench. The courtroom stood as he entered. But this time, the tension in the air felt different. It felt final. Judge Haynes sat down slowly and reviewed the stack of documents before him one last time. Then he began speaking. "This court has reviewed the evidence presented throughout this case," he said. "We have heard testimony from witnesses who were silenced for years. We have examined documents that were hidden. And we have listened to voices that were denied access to their own financial futures." He looked directly at Kody. "What began as a family disagreement has revealed a calculated pattern of financial manipulation." The courtroom fell completely silent. The judge continued. "Evidence shows that trust assets were redirected, accounts were concealed, and legal agreements were modified without the knowledge of several beneficiaries." Robyn could be heard quietly crying in the background. The judge took a breath before announcing the ruling. Effective immediately, the court orders the liquidation and fair distribution of the Brown family trust. Gasps filled the courtroom. All assets will be divided equally among the original beneficiaries: Meri,
Janelle, Christine, and Kody.
But the judge wasn't finished. The company known as Family Harmony Holdings will be dissolved. He then turned toward Robyn. Mrs. Brown, the property purchased in Flagstaff using trust funds must either be reimbursed to the trust or surrendered within 90 days. Then came the final blow. Mr. Brown, the judge said firmly, "You are ordered to pay Meri Brown $190,000 in damages for withheld royalties, unauthorized use of trust contributions, and emotional distress caused by documented intimidation." Kody stared forward in disbelief. It was as if the words hadn't fully registered yet. Then suddenly he stood up and slammed his hand on the table. "This is insane," he shouted. "This is my family. They all left me." The judge's voice rose sharply. "Mr. Brown, sit down." Kody froze. "The law does not care who left whom," the judge said coldly. "It cares about what was taken and from whom." Finally, the judge turned toward Meri. His voice softened slightly. "Mrs. Brown, this court recognizes the courage it took to bring this case forward." He paused. "For too long, individuals in non-traditional marriages have believed they had no legal protection. Today, that assumption has been proven wrong." Meri nodded slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't celebrate. She simply closed her eyes for a moment, as if a weight she had carried for more than a decade had finally lifted. Outside the courthouse, the verdict spread across the internet within minutes. Hashtags exploded online. Hashtag Meri wins, hashtag Kody exposed, hashtag Sister Wives Court. On the courthouse steps, Janelle and Christine were waiting. When Meri walked outside, the three women embraced quietly. Not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but for everything they had endured together. Reporters shouted questions from every direction. "Meri, what happens next?" Meri paused before answering. Then she smiled softly. "Now," she said, "I start over. On my terms." In the weeks that followed, everything began to change. Filming for the show was halted. Advertisers backed away. Financial investigators were appointed to oversee the liquidation of the family assets. Christine launched a podcast about rebuilding life after plural marriage. Janelle began hosting financial seminars for women leaving polygamous communities. And Meri signed a book deal. The working title, Ghost Wife: How I Took Back My Life. Meanwhile, Kody was reportedly meeting with bankruptcy lawyers. His empire wasn't just shaken, it was collapsing. And as Meri stood on the porch of her renovated bed and breakfast months later, preparing to launch a new independent show of her own, one thing had become clear. Kody tried to silence her, but Meri didn't shout. She didn't fight with words. She fought with evidence, with documents, with truth. And, in the end, that truth changed everything. So, now we want to hear from you. Was Meri right to take this fight all the way to court? Or do you think there are still secrets about the Brown family that haven't been revealed yet? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because next week we're diving into Janelle's own legal battle, and what she uncovered might be even more shocking.